Hare Krishna, everyone, and a warm welcome back once again to our ever ongoing series on the glories of our beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, we're continuing with our mini-series on Stimulation for Ecstatic Love, and this will be part 115, in which we'll continue our discussions on the fourth quality of Krishna that distinguishes him from Lord Narayan, you all know by now, namely Rupa Madhuri, his extraordinary beauty. And today I would like to conclude with this final lecture on Krishna's hair, and it includes a beautiful pastime of Krishna as well as a pastime of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So first of all, the poet Paramananda Das describes Krishna's hair in a very beautiful, poetic way. He writes, Radha says to Vishaka, O Saki, the crown of Nanda Maharaj is studded with precious pearls and rubies. The crown of Lord Ramachandra is studded with diamonds and emeralds. The crown of Surya is made from unlimited rays of glow and charm. Unlimited rays of glow and charm. The crown of Indra is decorated with lightning, diamonds, and pearls. The crown of Lord Vishnu is decorated with 9 gemstones. But Krishna's head requires no crown, for his hair strands are made out of countless gemstones and pearls. His hair ends are like the threads of a sandalwood tree. The glorious crown of the whole creation is situated on Krishna's head in the form of his hair. Isn't that beautiful? So Paramananda Das, he concludes, he says, blissful are Krishna's hair like the blissful forest of Vrindavan. We thank that poet once again. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, in his Sri Shukrashari Shtava, verse 77, he also says, Glory to Sri Krishna's splendid and fragrant lotus face. With the nose, jaw, lips, cheeks, chin, and ears are the glistening petals, the tongue is the wonderful whorl, the handsome teeth are the filaments, the smile is the honey, the eyebrows and curling locks of hair are the black bumblebees, and the eyes are 2 conjunct birds resting there. Wow. Now, in my research on Krishna's hair during, of course, the last few weeks, I came upon a beautiful pastime described by one of our dear poets, Surdas. It's one of his most famous poems. He writes, Long live the Lord of Braj, long live Brajanath. With these glorifications, the cowherd boys placed Krishna and Balaram on their shoulders and brought them to the bathing ghats on the river Jamuna. There, under a magnificent banyan tree, the Gopas removed the ornaments and outer cloths of Krishna and Balaram. Then, while sitting on the laps of 2 other cowherd boys, the Gopas started massaging their beautiful bodies with jasmine oil called Fulela oil. Then after massaging Krishna and Balaram with Taila Mardana oil, all the boys smeared the Mahaprasad oil on their bodies. Then they all climbed up high on the banyan tree and started diving into the flowing water of the river Jamuna along with Krishna and Balaram. They all started swimming and playing in the waters of the Jamuna, splashing water on each other, throwing lotus buds on each other's backs while holding their breath underwater. Then they all came out of the water and placed Krishna and Balaram on the ghats of the river Jamuna. A Saka named Palash came with some towels and started drying Krishna's long hair, which was tangled. A Saka named Vishal started squeezing the water from Krishna's hair. A Saka named Sridham applied sandalwood oil on Krishna's head and smeared jasmine oil on his hair ends. A Saka named Shubal then fumed Krishna's hair with 2 types of coal, camphor, 5 types of herbs, 42 types of spices, and sandalwood powder. From those fumes, Krishna's hair became dry and shiny. Then Madhu Mangal, who was expert in eating ladus, showed his art of braiding hair. Rubbing his hands with some sesame oil, he parted Krishna's hair with a sandalwood comb, then disentangled it and started braiding it. Tying a knot on the end of Krishna's braid, he then sprinkled rose water on the braid with the help of a blossoming lotus. He then applied coconut oil on his curly locks with his fingers and decorated a curl on his forehead. Then with the help of the other cowherd boys, Madhu Mangal started placing fragrant forest flowers between the strands of Krishna's braid. And then the boys clipped and fixed Krishna's small hairs with silver and gold scissors. Chanting mantras, Madhu Mangal then started tying Krishna's turban with a very long cloth, and after tying it, the Gopas put a Sri Pencha crown on his turban. Sir Pencha crown on his turban. Then Krishna smiled at everyone and left to a dense forest to meet his beloved Sri Radha, leaving his cows and the cowherd boys on the banks of the Jamuna. The poet Surdas says, "With Krishna going to the forest, my heart roams with Govinda, the Lord of the senses." With Krishna's going to the forest, my heart roams with Govinda, the Lord of the senses. Well, thank you, Surdas. So, a little short today because this is the fourth lecture about Krishna's hair, but I would like to finish these lectures on Krishna's hair in a very interesting way. I mentioned it briefly in the beginning, by sharing a pastime about the hair of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who we all know is the combined form of Radha and Krishna. Now we all know that at a certain point in his pastimes, actually at the age of 24, Lord Chaitanya felt it was necessary for his mission to accept sannyas, the renounced order of life. Now for a person to accept sannyas, he must accept it from another sannyasi. And for this purpose, Lord Chaitanya, who was known as Nimai Pandit at the time, and who lived in Navadvip, chose Keshav Bharti Maharaj, who had an ashram in nearby Katwa. So to make a long story short, one day, very determined, Mahaprabhu left home, and he walked to Katwa. And there he went to the ashram of Keshav Bharti Maharaj. And there he fell at the feet of Keshav Bharti Maharaj and begged for sannyas. And hearing what was going on, devotees, thousands and thousands of devotees from everywhere started arriving at the ashram of Keshav Bharti, begging Lord Chaitanya not to take sannyas. Why should the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the supreme enjoyer, have to live in a renounced way of life? But Mahaprabhu had his purpose. Now Chaitanya Bhagavat Madhya Khanda, chapter 28, goes into great detail about this pastime. And it describes there, at this point, how shocked everyone was. Someone said, "How will his mother survive? What a terrible night she must have passed." Another person lamented, "What pious activity has his wife performed to obtain him as her husband, and by what misfortune has she now lost him?" And Chaitanya Bhagavat goes on to describe, "Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the life of all, sat down to have his head shaved, including the Sika. But when the barber came to shave the Lord, a tumultuous sound of weeping arose. The barber hesitated to shave the Lord's curly hair. Before he even touched the Lord's head, he began to cry. The devotees," goes on, "the devotees headed by Nityananda all started weeping and rolling on the ground." And the author of Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur, he goes on to say that suddenly the Lord got up and started dancing while continually chanting Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. And as his associate Mukunda Datta began kirtan, the Lord sat down again but was unable to remain still. Due to ecstatic love, he trembled and tears flowed from his eyes. And because of witnessing this transcendental scene, the barber, whose name, by the way, was Madhu, his eyes filled with tears and he was unable to see and do his work of shaving the beautiful hair of the Lord. But finally, in the late afternoon, by the will of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, somehow this Barber Madhu managed to shave off all of Mahaprabhu's long, curly, black hair. And immediately after doing so, the barber cried out in anguish, "What misery have I caused? What have I done?" And he fell unconscious on the ground. And at that moment, a great uproar of weeping and wailing by all present, it's described, filled the four directions. And Vrindavan Das Thakur writes, "Who could console the devotees? What a pitiful sight." And then it's described that all the men and the women present were unable to speak, and seeing this pitiful sight, all the birds and the trees fell silent. Then, after being revived from his unconscious state, the barber said, "From this day on, I renounce this profession of being a barber. Never will my hands cut the hair of anyone else again. I shall rather become a beggar." But Vrindavan Das Thakur writes that in time he took up the occupation of a sweet maker, making sweets. So I actually had the good fortune a couple of years ago to visit this ashram of Keshavarti Maharaj in Katwa. And I saw there that there's still the original banyan tree under which this pastime took place. Mahaprabhu's head was shaved. And there's actually a shrine containing the hair that was cut there, as well as the Samadhi Mandir of Keshavarti Maharaj. So if you get a chance when you're in Mayapur, it's not that, it took us maybe 2 hours to get there. It's a holy place. So let us conclude today with verse 168 of the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Kanda, chapter 28, wherein the appearance of Lord Chaitanya 500 years ago is predicted in the ancient Mahabharata. Therein Chaitanya Bhagavat says, in the Mahabharata, Dhana Dharma, Vishnu Sahasranam Stotra, it is said about Krishna, Sanyasa Karik Shama Shanto Nishta Shanti Parayanaha. That same Lord Vishnu accepts sannyas, is detached from sense gratification, is fully surrendered to Krishna, is fully determined to engage in the sacrifice of chanting the holy names of Krishna, and is fully absorbed in Mahabhava, which ridicules the peaceful state attained by the non-devotee impersonalists. Which ridicules the peaceful state attained by the non-devotee impersonalists. And Chaitanya Bhagavat goes on to say that the names of the Lord mentioned in the Vishnu Sahasranam, again, are Sannyasa Karit, which means he who takes sannyas, as Krishna takes sannyas, Sama Shanta, he who is detached from material enjoyment, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Bhagavan Nishta, who is attached to the Supreme Lord. In other words, Mahaprabhu comes in the mood of a devotee, showing us what is devotion to Sri Krishna. And it concludes, Shri Gaurasundar, fulfill the meaning of these names. Hare Krishna. So thank you, Prabhu. So that's all about Krishna's hair, and just a preview. Next week we're going to begin studying the transcendental qualities of Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani. Hare Krishna. So, Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Radha Shama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan ki, Nitai Go Bhimanandi, Jai Jai Sri Sri Radhe.